Good evening, everyone. My name is Tony Miraker. I'm the section chair in Toronto here, and I welcome you all to our meeting this evening. First of all, I would like to wish everybody a Happy New Year, and 2021 is going to turn around for all of us, and we'll hope for the best for everybody. We are at our halfway point in our SMPTE sections year, and we've got 5 down and 5 more to go. I also want to take a moment here to, let me just grab that guy for a sec. Our sponsor tonight is the technical conference. We do have plans in the works to have this in June. We are definitely going to be doing this virtually, so please stay tuned. We are in the process of putting all the proper documentation together as to the theme and things of that nature, but we will have a TTC for 2021. I will show here that we've got Jamie, Stosh, and Reed as our co-organizers for the evening. They've done a marvelous job in putting together a topic that is quite interesting, and it's right on point. It's news broadcasting, production, and COVID with a few dots behind it. Presenters tonight are Jerry Bellick, Ross Mosley, Bills DeSantos, and Eric Shen. And I do want to take a couple of minutes. I mentioned this at our last meeting in December, that we have 2 Canadians that were introduced into the Fellows umbrella for SMPTE, and that's Michael Johnson and Felix Poulin from Montreal. So that was a great honor, but I neglected to mention that John Ross got a SMPTE honorary membership nominee or an award as well. And I apologize, John, for not including you in last month's meeting, but I wanted to make sure that we did include you in this meeting. And congratulations to the 3 of them. So this evening, we will, similar to our other meetings, we are, I'm going to be at the controls here, so I'm going to be bouncing around the controls for the various presentations or presenters. Jamie and Stosh will both be assisting in this process. Jamie will be reading the bios and introducing the presenters, and Stosh is going to man the chat room and the question area. Now, if you do have questions or you want to have questions asked, there is a drop down in the bar for GoToWebinar where you can actually enter in your question. You can also put in there that I have a question, and once Stosh sees that, he can unmute you and you can he'll spark you up and you can ask your question. So from that perspective, we'll do all the questions at the end of all the presentations. So Jamie, I think I'm going to ask you to spark up your camera, and Jerry, you could spark up yours as well if you wanted to. And so take it away, Jamie, and I'm going to put up Jerry's bio.
Thank you very much, Tony, and thanks everybody for joining us tonight. What we think you will find to be a very informative presentation, and very topical for that matter, considering we're all in the middle of this together. So I'd like to introduce my friend Jerry Bellick. Jerry is currently the National Director of News Operations and Technology in Radio and Television Station Operations. Jerry's currently serving on the Global News Senior Leadership Team. He is a live television professional specializing in workflows, content delivery, and leading teams through change from the edit suite to the executive suite and the control room to the boardroom. Jerry has a diverse production background that spans broadcast production, broadcast systems manufacturing and support, and broadcast equipment sales. He represented Global News in 2017 in New York as they received the first ever Edward R. Murrow Award for Technical Innovation. He also represented Global News with the 2009 NAB Award for Excellence in Studio Technology for the Global News Distributed Broadcast Model. He was also a roadie for the Grateful Dead, but understandably so, he doesn't remember much about that.
No, I do
Right,
not.
pal? You take it away, Jerry.
Well, thanks, everybody. And I think you have to show my screen.
Yep.
Let's see if we get
You
this
should,
right.
you should have it shortly. There you go.
All right. Once upon a time. Well, first of all, I just want to thank you. Thanks for the invitation. And I want to be clear to the group that I'm just the presenter here. The stuff that we're going to talk about in this presentation is really the result of some great work, hard work, some innovation on behalf of the global, or the course engineering team, the cloud ops team, IT security. You know, it's amazing how COVID has set us apart, scattered us to all parts of the country. In one sense, but brought us together in other senses. So with that, I'm just going to give you a quick kind of overview of what we've been doing here at Global News with respects to news in a very challenging time. So once upon a time is how I like to start my stories at Global News. This was considered a dangerous news assignment. Now, this is considered a dangerous news assignment. You may remember this as a live television production control room. Well, this is what a live television control room looks like now. This is a shot from our Edmonton Mossart Control 1. And this was taken early on in the pandemic where, you know, we separated our staff with little sheets of plexiglass. Now they're really big sheets of plexiglass. And if you were to go into that control room today, they'd be wearing masks and probably gloves. And it's also important to know that we've completely redone the air conditioning in most of these rooms. It's probably where most of our operational expenses have gone this year. You may recall this as being our national news studio for our election last year, our federal election. This is now our national news studio, and this is where our anchor Donna Friesen did her national news presentation from in her basement in West Vancouver when she returned from the American elections and had to quarantine for 14 days. And I think she still does the odd newscast from there. She's quite comfortable there. Most importantly, these are the people I really miss. And, you know, we all got into television because it was a team sport. It's a team sport. There's a production shot from, I think, the Alberta election from a year or so ago. And, you know, one of the reasons we all got into this business is to stand with, you know, shoulder to shoulder with our friends and our colleagues. And you look at that right now, and there isn't anybody on this call who has stood in a group that big in a very long period of time. So, you know, this may be the biggest, the worst part of COVID is just this loss of connectivity to our friends and colleagues. But you know, they're still here, and they're working in rooms like this alone, and here masked up, surrounded by plexiglass, and here isolated in various pods and places in each of our facilities, working alone at their desktops with their monitor walls and their intercoms. Here's an example of a producer doing a provincial election isolated in a separate room in the bowels of our Burnaby facility. Everybody's wearing masks, everybody's working alone. And this is not an uncommon sight in any of our facilities now, somebody talking by themselves into a camera on a double ender somewhere, having set the whole thing up themselves and doing it all on their own. If I was to draw a map of global news prior to the pandemic, it'd probably look a lot like this. I'd put a little red dot on the map for every one of our points of production. That map probably looks like this now. And it's actually, that's just a cheesy cut and paste. There's probably hundreds more dots that aren't represented on this map. we've got people spread out across the country and actually around the world right now working on our productions, and I'll talk a little bit about that. COVID-19 really sparked a number of really cool initiatives that have allowed for a lot of innovation, despite the fact that it's made it really complex. Of course, staff health and safety are the biggest concern, and we've had to introduce PPE and cleaning initiatives, and seating plans and building occupancy levels have all changed. We've had to reimagine our workplace systems like HVAC, how we get in and out of the buildings. Of course, contact tracing is so important now. And we had to vision and launch this work from home strategy. And Chorus had the foresight, the leadership on the IT and the engineering team and the finance team had the foresight to actually buy over 900 laptops. And we had to deploy these for business news and production needs. We've deployed over 400 monitors into people's homes and into these remote locations. Hundreds of our employees have been sent home to work remotely, and that's to ensure business continuity for sales, marketing, administration, news. Eric's going to talk about master control. We'll also talk about Nelvana and upcoming presentations, but there isn't a department in this organization that wasn't impacted by this. It got me thinking, really, as part of this presentation, as we sort of evacuated these buildings and sort of retreated to our bedrooms and our kitchens and our living rooms and our home offices. You know, is news production really a place anymore, or is it just simply an application? And historically, you know, we've always thought of newsrooms and control rooms and feed rooms and edit suites and graphics departments, administration areas, studios. These are always these places where we had convened to actually work on these applications. But now, with the COVID work from home strategy, we've really had to virtualize these rooms and turn them into the applications that they really are, and force us to look at these rooms as nothing more than applications. And, you know, using things like open media, ENPS, Microsoft Teams has been a godsend, by the way. The whole Office 365 suite in a very, very small way, but also in a very big way. But luckily in a control room, we've already, you know, applicationized or turned our switcher and audio into an application through Mossart and open media. Of course, feed rooms, Degero, Teradek, Sparrow, all of these things, ways of getting media in and out of our facilities, has turned into an application. But really, instead of doing it from those feed rooms, we've had to extend those applications out into the field. Editing's been one of the biggest challenges too, but of course we're using a lot of proxy-based editing now with our Grass Valley system, or using ZBoost or TeamViewer to simply remote into an edit suite from home, which is what we're doing with a lot of our high-res systems. We create hundreds of graphics a day through the Adobe Creative Cloud, and of course that's kind of a cut and paste, and that's built-in workflow, which has been very, very simply extended to the homes and to the home offices. Administration, of course, is Office 365. And if there's one place that hasn't changed that dramatically, it's probably the physical studios themselves. They're already kind of socially isolated with robocams and no floor directors. The biggest difference in our studios may be the fact that we don't really see 4 people at an anchor desk anymore. Maybe it's 1, maybe it's 2, and the weather person is at home now, right? The biggest key to our success, and this is whether it's just foresight, I won't call it luck, I'm going to call it foresight, but we've really been working very, very hard over the last few years trying to virtualize our newsroom applications. Everybody who's worked in news knows that you need numbers of multiple applications to keep track of different systems and all the content and media that goes to a newsroom. Things like ENPS and Trello and Google Docs and Outlook and contact tracking. Some of our journalists would have upwards of 10 or 11 applications open on their desktops to do a news story. But what we're doing now at Global News is, and this is just great luck as well, we've been working on virtualizing our newsroom applications into one common workflow engine called Open Media. And through Open Media, we've actually managed to wrap our heads around, instead of working on shows, working on stories. You've heard the term story-centric over the years, but we're really doing that at Global News now and putting everything into a content bin. Each of those content bins, I'll go back a slide, actually holds all the keys and all the content for any particular story. Everything from the original email that may have came in from a viewer or from a tip, to the audio, the video, the graphics, the versions, the audio for radio, the links to the website, all of that is contained into this one content bin. That's been a fundamental change for us because generally newsrooms think about shows. We're slowly but surely moving ourselves into a sort of a story-based workflow, and a story bin is the key to that. This application keeps track of all of our assignments in one master database. So anybody in the newsroom organization across the country can see who's working on what. It keeps track of all of the feeds. We have so many inbound feeds throughout any course of any day, whether it's via Degero or MediaNet or any other application now with Zoom or Skype or Teams, keeps track of where those feeds are coming in, who the guests are, where that content lives. Of course, the raw content and the finished content is also captured in the very same database. Again, in our previous life, we would have seen these applications or this content spread out into multiple databases, but now it's all into open media. And with that, we've extended that application over to the web, to a mobile application, and as well as the desktop client. So anybody, anywhere in the news organization can see what everybody else is working on, and they have access to the content. There's not a lot of hunting and pecking for that content anymore. If it's in a story bin, if it's in open media, you're going to find it regardless of where you are in the organization. You can be at home, at work, in the field. It's going to be your conduit to all that. So the COVID-19 crisis has really hastened our sort of venture into that because of necessity, really. It's complicated to keep track of all of these things, all of these places over multiple applications, and open media has been a great tool for getting us into that one application space. The other really big initiative, and you wouldn't think this is a big initiative, but it's been a godsend. With the update of our routing switchers over the last couple of years, of course, I think they're all the Evertz routers now. And the Evertz routers have the built-in monitor walls now, like any good router will have. And we've been able to distribute those monitor walls anywhere in the network or over the network using things like Teradek, or even something like Microsoft Teams with an Elgato Cam link. So what's really cool is you can actually have a Teams meeting, and somebody can bring a monitor wall into that Teams meeting because we just take the HDMI out of a routing switcher, turn it into a webcam, and you can have a community of people talking about a particular show or a particular production, and we'll be looking at the control room monitor wall. So extending that monitor wall and that control room to people's kitchens has had a huge impact. And if you were to look at this presentation that I have up on right now, the upper left shot with the lamp and the laptop and the monitor wall, that is actually our producer for the BC Global News morning show on the weekends. Her family had taken ill in the UK, and she produced our morning show from their flat in London, and using ENPS, Unity Intercom, and of course giving her the monitor wall. And she actually really enjoyed not getting up at 3 in the morning and able to do the morning show at 5 in the afternoon. The upper right is a really interesting shot where we've extended as a test one of our control rooms to somebody's living room in the event that we needed recovery if we had to abandon ship, say, of one of our facilities. So that was more of a proof of concept, but we did use it quite some time for a few shows anyway. But we extended the monitor wall. Looks like somebody's got a projector at home as well, projected up under their wall, and you can see Mossart and an intercom and ENPS in the foreground. And I'm really proud of this one at the bottom of that screen. This is somebody's kitchen table where they're producing the New Brunswick provincial election. And you'll see the Bannister Lake software to the left, an HTML5 L-frame in the upper left, and of course the ever-present monitor wall, and looks like Outlook on the bottom there. Another major, I don't want to say innovation, this is just a product, but Unity Intercom and the RTS V-Link, extending that intercom to the folks at home with desktop and iPhone applications, game-changing. The picture on the left, of course, you can sort of see the vMix panel, and a nice little Stream Deck hotbox down to the right, which would allow you to actually, rather than use your mouse on the screen, you can just select those little USB buttons on the right in a hotbox kind of shotbox format and talk to anybody anywhere from your laptop over the network VPN. Of course, Microsoft Teams has been a big part of our communication strategy as well, not just with telephony, but with video, text, audio, and screen sharing as well. One thing I didn't expect to be doing, but was probably one of the biggest challenges, was that we had to produce 4 elections. We had 4 snap, well, we knew the US election was coming, of course, but New Brunswick, British Columbia, and Saskatchewan all called snap elections. And we had to sort of answer that call. It's part of our mandate, and it's something that we want to do, whether it's the smallest of our markets in New Brunswick or a national US federal election coverage. And you know, we're so fortunate to have exercised that virtual muscle, that distributed model in leading up to this, because we were able to mount some very sophisticated election broadcasts, which is by and large the most complicated thing we do, with feeds and with data and with control room and you know, frame accurate presentation. And we were able to extend that to people's kitchen tables. We literally had nobody in the facilities outside of a Mossart director and perhaps a technician and the engineering support. The work from home election desktop really did look like this. This was from a previous slide, of course, but the Bannister Lake software, of course, is a web-based product. We're migrating a lot of our displays through Bannister Lake, the HTML5. And when you start playing with HTML5 instead of your conventional character generators with, you know, matrix cards and NVIDIA cards and you know, SDIIO, it really brings a lot of innovation and change to the way you do things. And in this case, we used Bannister Lake's database to create not just our online product, our HTML5 L-frame product, and our touchscreen products, all from the same database that was housed in our Chorus cloud. And in previous elections, there would have been, geez, I don't know, countless people running around, surrounding servers, surrounding control rooms, surrounding you know, pods of people working on these initiatives. But because they were all virtualized and available to anybody on the VPN, we were actually able to leverage that connectivity to put some very sophisticated displays together, you know, and sort of transcend time zones and transcend geographic boundaries. And that was a huge leg up for us, especially when it came to these things like touchscreens, because you can't like walk into a studio and fix something anymore. You can really just change a few lines in code and make changes to the presentation. So that was one of the biggest success stories as part of the COVID pandemic, was forcing us to look at these alternative platforms and alternative ways of making graphics and distributing these graphics. So in short, really, this virtualized election experience really allowed us to virtualize our decision desk, our feeds, our studios, our remotes. We were hosting the database in the AWS cloud for, you know, basically instantaneous access to the touchscreens and to the web. And of course, the web at that point, we're serving hundreds of thousands of users across the country as well, right? So that was pretty good. But it's come a long way from where we'd have an election, we would fly an entire team to a region, we'd put people up in hotels, and we would have, you know, crazy meals and late nights and hotels and flights, rental cars. I don't know if we'll ever go back. We were able to basically do this by keeping everybody at home through these really cool applications. Last but not least, and this is a real shout out to you know, Jeff Franklin and the engineering team and Master Control, people at Chorus and the Cloud Ops, the ability to launch 14 regional OTT channels in the midst of all of this. And that's really crazy, really. We were just going to launch one OTT channel, and at the top, when the pandemic hit, we were approached by Amazon if we could do 4 or 5 regional channels, and we did. And if you were to go to globalnews.ca now or globaltv.com and look at that, you'll see that we're offering over 14 channels now on our OTT in our OTT space, and that was all done remotely from home using our cloud ops team, our crack engineering squad, with heightened IT security, with changes in our VPN strategy. While we're working on the VPN, they're actually our team at Chorus IT was actually reinforcing it and increasing the speeds, and it was really like conducting an operation on a patient while they're still awake. But it's been a crazy ride the last last 9 months. But the success of this has really come down to our muscle that was already in place with remote production. All of the work that we did on the engineering side by putting in new routing infrastructure that really spawned the ability to extend these monitor walls and these routers virtually to people's kitchens. We already had a really good method for server-based playout for a lot of our smaller markets, where we would gather news locally but present it through centralized servers. That by all means was a bonus already, not having to worry about those small control rooms in the smaller markets because there simply aren't any. The expansion of Intercom with Unity and RTS has been a godsend. Of course, the distribution of the monitor walls with Teradek and Teams. If you're not using TeamViewer and RDP, of course, everyone is using that type of stuff, but doing it in a secure and safe fashion now with the heightened security concerns in IT, there's a real credit to that team for allowing us to do that and to allowing us to do that in a safe and structured way to not put the network at risk. I know there was probably some late nights for that security team, knowing that everybody was from home doing all of this work remotely, and they were happy to support us. I think they were happy to support us. They certainly did. The purchase and distribution of hundreds and hundreds of laptops and monitors, and kudos to the engineering team, the technical leadership in this company for having the foresight to buy them. I think we're well over 900 laptops out there now. The expansion of the VPN was big. The migration to Office 365 was a very important part of this as well. And again, bending the news workflows with a brand new product called Open Media. And last but not least, this clever product with Bannister Lake to really extend our election systems and our ability to do elections remotely and through the cloud has been really, really important to the team across the country. And that's kind of been news in a nutshell at Chorus, Global News. I wish we're going to be looking at a spring election probably federally. We're all pretty excited about that, I think. But most importantly, I think we're in for the long haul. Everyone kind of figured it would all go away in 2021, but I think we're going to be doing this for some time. September, maybe well into 2022. I guess we'll see. But I feel really lucky to be surrounded by some very talented engineers, IT professionals, and production people to make this all happen.
Excellent. Thank you. And
Thank you.
Jamie, if you can, I'm going to just grab presentation control again.
Sure.
And
sure. I'm just going to say thanks to Jerry. Jerry, thank you, number one, for accepting the invitation to come speak. And number two, thank you for being such a great leader in the technical world that allowed Chorus and Global News to continue providing Canadians with the information that they need. When people are on their couches, we got to give them stuff to look at, right? So,
yeah, there's never an option. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll ask you to stick around, as in I'm sure there'll be questions at the end for you to answer. So thank you.
So Jerry, if I can get you to douse your camera, and Russ and Vils, if I can get you to spark your camera up, and then Jamie, I'm going to move to the next slide. If you can then, now
Absolutely.
both Jamie and, both Ross and Vils are going to be doing their presentations at the same time, so we're going to go through both bios together.
Yes, yes. Thanks, Tony. I believe these two gentlemen are tight at the hip, it seems, so it only makes sense that they'll present together. First off, I'd like to introduce Ross Mosley. Ross is currently head of production operations and technology for Nelvana Limited. Ross earned a degree in systems design engineering from the University of Waterloo back in the 1900s. Starting as a programmer in the digital switching and communications industry, he quickly transitioned to designing and writing applications to manage the various post, satellite, and live event services offered by Dome Productions, located in what was then called the Skydome. One of those services was CG animation, applied in commercials and broadcast graphics. When Toy Story was released in 1995, the world of entertainment changed, and Ross wanted to be a part of that evolution. He worked for a series of boutique CG houses in Toronto before taking a position with Nelvana's nascent 3D group in 2000. Ross recently returned to Nelvana in 2016 in his current role, now responsible for both digital 2D and 3D workflows and look development, applying hybrid approaches to the creation of cartoons for children. Tony, if you can go on to the next slide. And Vils DeSanto is currently Senior Manager of Post-Production in Studio. Vils is a film and television professional with a key focus in audio and video post-production and technology. Currently the Senior Manager Post-Production with Chorus Entertainment, Vils works closely with his clients to ensure all post-production needs are met on time and on budget. Vils has expertise in online and offline post-production, services for animation and live action productions, digital asset management, media distribution, and quality control. Having worked with many of the world's largest media production and distribution companies, he understands the importance of providing exceptional service across all levels of the post-production business. Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much, and we'll move on to the world of animation and post.
So, Vils, you should have presentation control.
Thank you. And thanks for the invitation to participate in this event. Tonight we're going to talk about animation production at Nelvana and how we managed to navigate the pandemic by relocating in excess of 300 individuals from the studio floor to their homes, plus changes to pre and post, which Vils will address in his part. Ultimately, we were successful. Production schedules were initially impacted by those moves, but those impacts were absorbed. We caught up, and by the end of our fiscal, we had met all of our deliverables for the year, and we continued to track on schedule, frankly, really without any tangible hardship, although not all of these hardships are measurable at this time in terms of people's personal experiences. So this presentation focuses on the unique requirements of an animation crew member and what they do at their workstation and how we manage to continue with providing that service. So I'd like to, next slide, please. I'd like to provide a little context. Nelvana is an animation studio wholly owned by Chorus Entertainment. We occupy about 3/4 of one floor at Chorus Key. The studio employs between 250 and 300 production crew at any given time, crewing anywhere from 4 to 6 shows running concurrently. We make shows both in 2D and 3D. Lately, about 80% is 2D using Toon Boom's Harmony product, and 20% are 3D. And these are currently very Maya-centric types of productions. A production translates to a single season of one show, usually 26 half hours. And a single season order like that takes about 15 to 18 months to fill. Next slide. So here are some of the shows we produced in the last 2 years. I just want to point out that the graphic in the upper left with the 3 cats is currently our only CG production that we're making at this time. We're just ramping up on season 2 of that. Next slide. This presentation will focus on the 2D digital pipeline as opposed to the 3D and moving that pipeline into a work from home mode. As mentioned, our 2D shows are created using Harmony, which is really sort of the crown jewel of the animation production suite offered by Toon Boom, which is incidentally a wholly owned subsidiary of Nelvana located in Montreal. Depending on your approach and the requirements of a particular show, Harmony can facilitate productions which range in sophistication of look from flashlight simplicity through to Disney-esque hand-drawn traditional cartoons. Next slide. So here's a typical workstation setup for a 2D crew member, both for a designer, the person who creates a Harmony asset, which represents a character or a prop, and for the animator who creates the performance within a shot. The piece of equipment, which may be atypical for most of our audience, is the Wacom Cintiq on the left. This is essentially a tablet where the artist draws. Most of our users have the 22-inch HD model shown here. It is essentially a combination of tablet and monitor. Next. So here's an artist at work on such a device. And this is a good chance to talk about latency in these drawing devices. Latency refers to the delay between the advancement of the stylus or pen across the surface and the leading edge of the line or stroke being drawn. Latency cannot be eliminated. But when it exceeds, say, 25 milliseconds, and that is getting a little high unto itself, but you can get used to it. However, when you get above that, it begins to have a detrimental effect on the artist's experience and their ability to, well, draw and draw well. Could I get the next slide? Thanks. And here's a spec for our workstations and the most recent model of Cintiq that we have purchased. As for the workstations, the most important features are texture memory on the graphics card, system memory, and the speed of the hard drive. A single scene within any Harmony show is comprised of hundreds, if not thousands, of files, including texture files. And so the ability to read and hold in memory those various files is crucial to performance. And then on the Cintiq side, you can see that the resolution and aspect ratio aligns with the 1080p format. Another important measure is the levels of pen pressure sensitivity, which usually translates to line thickness in any drawing stroke. But the registration of pen pressure is an important characteristic when evaluating virtual workstation setups, for example, in the cloud, which we touch on later. Slide 8, please. And here we're sort of getting to the heart of the matter. In the movement of crew to their homes, these are the factors that had to be addressed. We have to provide ease of access to large data sets representing individual design assets, and then larger data sets representing the shots themselves, which are a combination of those smaller assets. We need to provide a fidelity of control. This is mostly about drawing response for the designers and animators who draw in the course of their work. This goes to the latency measure that I mentioned earlier. And we need to provide access to central storage and centralized services like render farms, things like that. The various crew roles which make up a production team vary in their dependency on these factors. Interestingly, on the 3D side, drawing and latency in pen strokes are not a factor when dealing with actual production assets or scenes. Occasionally tablets are used on the 3D side, but that's more about addressing discomfort resulting from continuous mouse usage. Can I get the next slide? So simply put, these factors contend with each other. Typically, if you require fidelity of control, you want to work locally on the client. Providing timely access to large data sets and services is easiest when the work is performed in network proximity to that data and to those services. And in this case, on the studio's network, because we're not producing in the cloud currently. Next. So what we tried to do was match the roles to work from home setups that address the most pressing requirements of those roles. When drawing fidelity was required, we landed on a workstation at home. This means data sets have to be moved back and forth. A scene or asset, as I mentioned earlier, is composed of multiple files, is exported from the Harmony network, zipped, downloaded, expanded, and then worked on. When the work is complete, the upload is reversed. We zip it up, upload, expand it, and then it's installed back into the Harmony network so that it can be rendered and participate in timeline changes and things like that. This communication is provided via Nelnet, which is our in-house developed production management system. The next technique, I guess you could call it, is sort of a compromise. You're working locally, but VPN'd onto the course network, providing random access to data and services. The problem is that the VPN pipe is somewhat limited, So this method best serves work where random but not heavy data set access is required. And the third involves the remote control of workstations left in studio via something like TeamViewer. This is best when fidelity of control is not required, but heavy data set access is. The workstation is in studio and controlled obviously remotely from home. Can I get the next one? Now, this approach, which we did not use because we frankly didn't have the equipment in place, but we are considering for future. This is where we lose the classic workstation setup, replacing these clients with a farm of graphics hardware to which a thin client connects. The graphics resources can be apportioned dynamically to the user based on the requirement of the process that they're running or whatever activity they're doing. It's the equivalent to the graphics in the cloud offered by Google and Amazon and others, although I'm not sure if those engagements are generally dynamic and respond to requirements of the user. And Teradici is the software product that we are considering and evaluating, which provides the remote control, including pen pressure, and really the most important aspect of it is that it attempts to minimize latency. Next. And this slide is a very generic sort of depiction of this approach. I'd like to highlight the clients depicted, however, laptops, phones, etc. Next. The problem is in that depiction is that for many of our people, the so-called light client is not so light. That Cintiq on the left there is large, somewhat heavy, not something you want to carry around with you. Any effort to shrink it fights with the need to provide a reasonable screen space to draw on. It'd be nice if you could roll it up and take it home and then unroll it and use it, but we don't have that yet. Now Vils is going to now take us through the pre and post parts of our production process. Take it away, Vils.
Thank you, Ross. Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting us to participate in tonight's SMPTE meeting. Very pleased to be here. Chorus post-production. Thought I'd paint a little snapshot for you for what we operate at Chorus Key, specifically at Chorus Key. We support 4K, UHD, HDR, and HD for not only for Nelvana animation, but also for live action production, our on-air promotion or OAP team for all of the Chorus broadcast channels, sales team support. So we're doing high-end commercial finishing, graphics, music, and marketing. So those are all areas we support within our internal post-production facility. We have a total of 23 offline edit suites on site in our Toronto office. The offline suites run Adobe Premiere Pro is our primary offline editorial platform. Storyboard Pro is what our pre-production editors use when working on Nelvana animatics. We call it Leica. It's also known as animatics. We also have 5 online high-end finishing suites, which are Quantel Rio based. We have 10 audio mix theaters, all running Pro Tools, and are in the process of being upgraded at this particular moment in time. So very happy to be able to announce that as officially taking place right now. We have 6 voiceover booths, which we use primarily for our on-air promotions team. So again, voiceovers for our Treehouse channels, Teletoon, things like that. And we have 3 sound editorial suites for things like music editing, sound effects editing, dialogue editing. Those are all supported again internally. Moving to, and I'm focused mostly on Nelvana production, post-production today. So the production and coordination staff on the Nelvana side were all supplied with laptops for home use when this all got underway last 10 months ago. VPN access was provided to the Nelvana file servers and shared storage devices. We use Cisco AnyConnect as our primary VPN supplier. This workflow is in use by the show producers, the coordinators, and all of the production management staff as well. One of the first areas in animation, of course, where everything begins is in the voice recording. And so we don't do a lot of voice recording on site at Chorus. We tend to work with production partners, facilities like Supersonics and Wanted, to handle our voice records for our productions. So we identified the need right away that we would need to find workarounds because obviously talent and staff weren't able to come into these facilities any longer back in March, April, May, June to do their voice records. So we looked at a number of different options to supply the voice talent with home setups. So we approved basically a handful of USB mics and stands that would work in such a situation. That of course included a pop filter, headphones, and a reflection filter to enable home recording that was of a high enough quality to maintain the levels of quality that we have on our shows. Obviously, a lot of shows are in the middle of production season. So, you know, episode 13, the lead character on, you know, Esme and Roy, for example, can't begin to sound different, you know, can't have a different room treatment, can't have a different echo. It all has to match the previous episodes as they were recorded. So we worked very hard to ensure that that was followed across our productions. We used remote voice recording software called Source Connect Now and Nexus Pro Driver software. So that allowed the voice talent at home to download a free piece of software, which is the Source Connect, so no cost to the voice talent. And the recording studio was using Nexus Pro Driver, and that would enable them to record the sessions directly into Pro Tools. So we weren't bypassing, we weren't doing you know, temporary records, things like that. It was all basically trying to mimic the in-studio, but obviously with everybody in a remote setting. So you've got the voice director, the producer, the engineer, and of course the talent all doing their parts for each episode. At the end, or sorry, at the beginning of all of this, we did engage some external QCs as well, so that we wanted to make sure that the voice quality and that everything that we were producing technically was up to par for our international syndication business, which is a big part of the Nelvana Animation Library, is that we sell it worldwide. So we're selling to partners like Disney and Sony Pictures and of course a lot of German and European broadcasters. So we had to ensure that the quality levels were not compromised in any way whatsoever. I just have a couple of pictures here of our setup, a couple of voice recording sessions at home. So you can see the kind of approach is just to make sure that you've got the isolation and the sound absorption to kind of mimic a voice record booth in a studio setting. But here, of course, it's done and a little more cost effective and perhaps not as pretty to look at, but it got the job done. And moving into our pre and post-production work. So again, we made the decision early on to try and keep most of the editorial staff on site at Chorus Key. We did instigate a number of policies where the edit suites and mix rooms were indicated as being single person only use. So again, not having that collaboration of producer, director, editor, art director, where they would typically join in on sessions. Now all of that had to be done remotely because you really only have the editor sitting in the chair and doing the editorial work. So we had to come up with a number of different ways to mimic that approach in our workflows. So a lot of QuickTime files going back and forth, a lot of QC calls, again, done as separate passes, where before we would have, again, 4 or 5 people watching through an episode at one time and all kind of giving their own feedback at the time it's happening. This way, it's a little bit more cumbersome, but we know that the end result has been met with us being able to keep on schedule, and that was obviously a big thing for us. We have delivery deadlines to meet, and we wanted to make sure that we were still able to meet those. For some editors who did have the ability or interest in working from home, we did roll out the use of TeamViewer across our productions. Again, TeamViewer allows the editor to remote into their workstation at Chorus Key. So they're relying on our storage networks, our storage drives, and they're just really dialing into those workstations and using them remotely. Whereas Ross's approach kind of tended to balance on the production side more a question of fidelity of control and things like that. We wanted to ensure that the speed and that the systems that were being accessed were being, again, kept to our high standards for our post teams. We also have post-production managers on our team who, of course, handle all of the deliveries, all of the scheduling, all of the QCs at various stages of the animation process and deliveries. So they are all equipped with laptops to review screeners. We have a process called VidNotes, which is kind of prior to the online and color correction portion of it is done remotely. And then, of course, the online and the audio mix as well. Here's a couple of pictures of some home users setups. On the left is a Leica station or an animatic that will is working on Thomas the Tank Engine, one of our new productions. And on the right is Mr. Jason Cohen, one of our color editors, also working on the new Thomas series that will be rolling out soon. This is a home setup of our online editorial system. So this is Doug Appledorn's suite, and he has remoted in basically to his Quantel workstation from home. So again, you can see, it's when you're working from home, you obviously have access to the platform and to the system. But in terms of things like QC calls or color grading, color correction, we still rely on going into the edit suite itself at Chorus to ensure any final work is done on site. We also have a syndication department that we support fully, and our current library, of course, we have old series from years and years ago in glorious standard definition to HD, which we've been, we were an early proponent of working in HD. We also have a few series and one-off productions produced in UHD and HDR. We produce and deliver in up to 30 languages. And there's currently about 4,800 half hours of animated content in our library, plus 300 hours of live action content, which is related to our Chorus Studios brand. Syndication, the team members are using Chorus supplied laptops again to support the deliveries, and are using VPN to access that, and they coordinate the transcoding work for all of the deliverables with our Ingest team for deliveries to the licensees. And that's all for me. I'm going to pass it back to Ross, who's going to talk about the post-pandemic future. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Bills. So I just want to take a brief look ahead at the future when the pandemic is in our rear view and we can repopulate the studio if we so choose. In other words, when things start to get back to normal. We anticipate, like many businesses do, that the pandemic will accelerate the move to a distributed workspace. We expect a mix of work from home full-time, work from office or studio full-time, But frankly, in surveys that we've executed on our crew, approximately 65% have expressed the desire to split that in some sort of scheduled way. We hope to address all three. Anyway, Vils, could you take me to the next one? So I just want to mention this is the last slide. Other considerations, which are technical, legal, and human. Color calibration of monitors across the various environments or work areas that people have in their homes and various light conditions that will be present in different homes presents a challenge as art directors are doing approval on color and not even sure if what the person who supplied them with that image is looking at. We are attempting to calibrate, but it certainly is a little more challenging than when you're in studio. You know, we're not as concerned as, say, you know, a transfer suite, if people still use those, but or a colorist suite, but we still certainly need standards and calibration in order to, you know what you're looking at. Of course, with more connectivity comes greater risk of network intrusion, so cybersecurity is an issue, and another security issue is the security of our IP. Nelvana and many of our production partners are especially sensitive to these concerns. On the legal side is the definition of place of business, because this goes to tax credit. Tax credits, frankly, keep the business of animation alive and well across Canada. And does an animator working in North Bay but connected to Nelvana within the GTA, does he qualify for the additional tax credits associated with working outside the Toronto region? I don't see why not if the goal is to distribute this work and employment across Ontario outside of the GTA or outside of the GTA or just in that region itself. Because you are employing someone out there, but I believe at current those tax credits, the additional tax credit for working in those more remote areas would not qualify in this particular setup. And the last 2 points are really about the management of our crew members. It's much easier to evaluate someone you can observe when they're at work. Of course, their output is observable, and we can look at that, and we can also look at whether they're meeting quota. But we may, and we have tools in our sort of toolbox using our in-house production management system to measure performance against quota. We just might have to start using that more frequently. Potentially putting some bells and whistles in there to inform us when someone sort of has dropped off the radar. People have emergencies and the like. Generally, those emergencies one is acutely aware of when they don't show up at work, but when they don't show up at their workstation at home, it's more difficult to know that that's going on. They should communicate to us, and we would support them in whatever emergency they may be going through, which is rife these days, frankly. But knowing that they're in a certain predicament is harder to figure out. However, we do have tools in place to potentially notice that someone is no longer accessing assets, uploading assets, that kind of thing. So we may put some alarms in there to tell us when that is happening, when it shouldn't. And that's really the end of our discussion. Thanks, Vils, and thanks to everyone out there who listened and hopefully learned something.
Yes, I'm sure the team did. Thank you very much for accepting the invitation, and thank you for sharing your knowledge with us, and for the monumental move of Nelvana and the post work that goes along with it to allow people to work from home while they're doing so.
Thanks, Jamie.
Well, thank you. I'll ask you guys to stand by. At the end, we'll have some questions, I'm sure. So thank you for that. Next up, we move into the world of master control with Mr. Eric Shen. Eric is currently the Director of Broadcast Engineering, Master Control Technology. Eric is a 28-year broadcast technology industry veteran and is currently overseeing engineering initiatives and the technical teams that support global TV and chorus specialty playout centers, production studios, and post-production facilities. Eric was attracted to filmmaking and TV production in high school. He spent the first half of his career in TV production working as a camera operator, audio engineer, graphic designer, and commercial director after graduating with a broadcast engineering degree. Now Eric spends most of his time working with technology that helps automate workflows in playout centers. Apart from technology, Eric enjoys a good book accompanied by some good music. Over to you, Eric.
Thank you, Jamie, for the introduction. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the mass control remote workflow part of it. What I would do. Okay, so can you show my screen?
Yes,
can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can now.
Okay, so yeah, sorry, didn't see that the window pop up on the side. Apologize for this. Just gonna talk a little bit about the mass control remote workflow. So I think you might still remember those days at the beginning where people were lining up, grabbing toilet papers in the big box store. So you might still see this. You probably still see this scenario, and especially today that the Ontario announced that the new measures restriction on the COVID. So apart from grabbing, some of us grabbing some of the toilet paper, the engineering team from course were tasked to figure out workflow for the mass control. So real quickly, they're just showing the portfolio that course has there. So course has two playout centers, one in Calgary, which is for all the global regional channel. You see a 17 global regional channel from there, as well as a BC1, a specialty channel, come off of the Calgary side. Over at the course key, we have a 34 specialty channel, course specialty channel, and we also have a division of key media services where we host the third-party playout for the third-party clients, TVO, TFO, MI, TLN, and Zoomers. So we have a kind of total between the two playout centers. We have a total of 67 TV channels originated from the two playout centers. So today I'm gonna touch a little bit more on the conventional side and the global side, just because the workflow is a little complex in the conventional than that of in specialty. So again, this is the kind of the on the left, the screen is a screenshot of the video wall, which typically what you have in your mass control. And over the top, this is really a mass control piece. Over the top, you have your the regional channel, our regional channels, and we also have same sub channel, and we have some of the specialty channel there. So mass control in the past was always considered a most concentrated area where we have, we're dealing with a lot of different workflow. We have signal monitoring. We have the playlist manipulation. We also have live event. We were switching live event. We have a breaking news. All of those happening in mass control, which also needed connected closely with our ingest department, so that when sometimes as we ingest a show, we wanted as still in the middle of recording, we want to put that show on air. So and also depending on different region, the show might start at different time. So it's kind of complex workflow in a mass control. So I think we at the beginning of before the pandemics, we didn't even think about hey, is that even possible to send people home and working from home and for the mass control environment. So I think that the Jerry and both Ross and Bill talk about the bit of a remote access. I'm gonna spend a bit of time on kind of what we've done to provide the remote access for the mass control side. So as you will see, the VPN is the first step to get into a course network from outside world. So in a mass control, we kind of have two different functioning. One is the playlist editing. So people usually load the next day's or next 3 days list. We'll time it, we will edit and change graphics, change different setting there, making sure there's no gap in there. So when this type of work, actually, we installed many in a VNC on many workstations. So in mass control operator will be sitting home, similar thing, watching that the video wall on your kitchen TV, and VNC to one of the automation system. So automation client where you could start to work on the playlist for the next 3 days. So you can do all you can do, because this editing process doesn't require very low latency. There's a few different applications for different use. For remote access to your automation client computer is not it doesn't require a low latency in a sense. So the other side of that is the monitoring. How do you see that video wall in your home? What we do was, as Jerry mentioned as well, we use the output of the multi-viewer and convert it into and then use the TeraDex and convert it to IP stream. So once you get into a course network, you just use the VLC player and you pick the stream that you want to watch. Let's say today I monitor all the global regional channel. I will pick that stream, I put it on my computer, and at the same time I can work on my playlists. So just one thing that I want to put it out there first. We are not saying that we bring everyone to home. We still have a kind of split between on-site presence for the mass control operator and remote process as well. So that combination actually works pretty well for our workflow. So next one is the global live. Global live, it requires a bit of a low latency is required. So what we did was on the left, this was the production switcher that we had, a physical switcher we had in the mass control. We had this virtual panel, and so once the operator log into the mass control PC, you can just bring up that virtual panel. So on the right-hand side, this is your typical the monitor wall for the production switchers. So where allows you to see all the incoming feed being assigned to your buttons, and also your preview in your program feeds and your time for that as well. So the latency on that, let's say between when I press that button until that screen actually lit up on the on my screen, this is about within that 1 second. And we did a few tests. Want to make sure to minimize the latency in there. But what we found was it's really to a lot of those depending on your internet speed, how quickly we see that. So we're typically around 1 second for that. That whole server allows you to hear the audio from the program window here, and then also use at the same time, operator will bring up the automation playlist view and control your router and control whatever that needs to be fed to those the screen. So you kind of have yourself a little live switchboard at home. Of course, the intercom is going to go through some of the telephone, and which kind of putting together that whole process there for us to deal with that live event. Moving over, breaking news. Breaking news is a big one, as we know that we've seen breaking news almost in daily basis and the weekly basis. So that's a big one. So for people who work from home, manage the breaking news. Breaking news usually happens with regional. Say, Ontario had just had the new restriction. So this is on the left hand side is our in-house software that we developed. So we're allowed us to do to roll multiple channel at once to the next event. Let's say if we queued up our channel, let's say our next event going to a Toronto line number 1. So all of the those channel being selected will have the Toronto 1 as our next event. So we can just pick and choose the channel, and then we can roll the lists. So all of a sudden that whole list is going to trigger. This is going to have us going through the API call to trigger the playlist and going to the next event. That's how we put the breaking news on air. Once get to the end of that, we can select the channel again and flip it back to the playlist, commercial break, what have you on your playlists. So that's kind of the software developed allowed us to do very flexibility to be able to do a multiple channel and roll at the same time, which works quite well as a remote workflow. And then we also use this for the on-site application as well. Next one is the ingest. So the ingest has, I think the ingest is very similar to what you have on the video wall. You will have your all the ingest ports coming in, where you can VNC to that. You can subscribe from VLC, and then you could look at what's coming into the encoders. This is really a confidence monitor. You're looking at you have closed captioning, you have video, and making sure they start and end at the same time. The operator could be able to go into our software to control the record and putting that time in there, so it automatically start to record. And then also the operator will also could monitor once the recording are done, making sure the file gets sent to the right place. There's file transfer system allows to monitor that and making sure that, hey, the file actually made through the player server at that time frame. So that's on the high level. This is really we're talking about the baseband ingest. In a file-based ingest is a little easier. Just receive a file and there's automatic transcoding process taking place, and we'll convert the file to the right format, our masked file format. So that file-based workflow already natively support the remote workflow. And when it comes to once the file gets into the system, now we need to get to the content preparation step. So content preparation presents a bit of a challenge for us because we need to have very low latency. As you will see, I'm in the operator sitting in front of my computer. I want to queue the file that's just being recorded. I want to just pause the file to the point where I can mark in, and also pause again at where I can mark out. So what we did was, with the other application you might have, when you hit the pause button till the video start to pause, you probably already have second or two. It's not going to work for us. So what we did was we actually used the game capture card on Automation PC. You've seen this. The screen over here, it is just a UI user interface for the game capture card. It actually would convert the SDI into HDMI, and feed that into the game capture card, the video will be presented on this window. So you can look at your video. This is about few frame of delay. Of course, it depends on your internet pipe speed, everything. So that actually allows to quite accurately to say we can pause the video, we can rewind, we can fast forward, we can rewind. So we can actually allow us to get to the video frame that we wanted. So we could do that with that interface. And then also I think the operator also can hear the audio through that. The downside of that is that there's no closed captioning for this, but just the nature of the low latency allowed us to do the segmentation pretty quickly on that interface. So next setup, we have a second setup, which is utilize the VLC player along with Blackmagic multi-viewer. This is the quad display where allowed us to see the video audio level and make sure that the loudest level is set right. And there's two screens at the bottom. One is the HD, the other side is down converted SD. So allow the operator to see whether whether we have the right format on the Ingest side, and this and then also you utilize the automation PC to do a marking mark out. The downside of that is that they introduced, because of VNC everything, there's a bit of a latency on that. We're talking about 5 to 6 seconds, and then depending on the internet speed again. We did tune one of the system to 3 seconds, but even though we can do at 3 seconds, but it still comes down to the internet speed for the user at home. Program QC. So, as we are looking at, we have multiple different QC, stations. So this is the setup allows user to looking at the QC. It's very similar setup as the previous the content preparation, but the program QC, apart from the HD and SD, the audio video level, and also be able to look at the feeds coming in for this. For instance, this is really looking at the ASI, outbound ASI from Calgary, where we're allowed us to monitor multiple audio channels and the closed captioning. And this is really a confidence monitor for our mass control operator, where they can sitting in their home, their living room, and watch that. So. And then also on top of that, the two bottom screens allow, and also we utilize the game capture card, which connected to our router output. So the operator can punch in the router being sent a different feed to that to monitor. So for us to get a close look, and all of this HD and SD and the video tech all kind of connected together for that. We also, apart from the signal QC, program QC, course also has this return signal QC. This is the process that rely on the Miranda, now Grass Valley's eye control process, where we actually rely on a lot of the set-top box. We be able to bring the feed coming from the set-top box from the various different regional, from country from Vancouver to Halifax, and bring into a Calgary. So let's say if we want to see our global Toronto signal across different region, we can just select the channel and punch in that number, punching the click the button, and also then this application allow you to see the CIII signal in the local market from various different local market, and send it over to the to the interface. So this is really neat, but that was something that we developed before pandemic, and works great for us to looking at the local market, our signal in the local market. You see that there's a signal notification there, error detect, And that allows, this is really the things that we could, from day one, we can have people working from home start to monitor the signal QC, return signal QC. Okay, I think that's almost the end. I would say, we've learned a lot through the last, I forgot, last 10 months since we've been at home. So all the combined technology allowed us to have like a 60% of staff send them back home. They can work in their living room, their kitchen, and still manning the complex, mass control workflow from their home. But I think this took a lot of effort from various different teams, engineering team, operating teams, and our security team, our network team, all the to combine effort to get this process in place. Actually, at the beginning, in the first slide that where the people try to grab the toilet paper, it took us about 3 weeks to get putting something together quickly that allowed us to actually sending people to home to work, and they still have the same amount, the efficiency allowed us to perform their duty at home. So that was it from me. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Oh.
It's okay. Thank you very much, Eric. I just want to say thank you to Eric, as I said thank you to all the rest of the presenters, and I'll flip it up. I'll flip it over to Stosh and to do the Q&A portion.
Thank you, Jamie. There are some questions. Maybe we can get all the presenters to light up their cameras. Might be cool to have everybody up there. The first question is for Jerry from Lawrence St. Ange. Who's responsible to manage that open media list? Oh, you need to unmute, sir. Unmute, please.
There you go. The cool thing about open media is this shared database, and it's not really managed by one person in particular. Open media is just really a cool database that gives you insight to everything we're working on from a global, regional, local, and personal level. So as an individual, if you were to go into open media, see what your assignments are, you just get a snapshot of what you need. As a news director in a market, you see what your market is doing. As a regional manager, you might see that. Of course, anybody can look at the grand scheme of things. But the neat thing about open media and television news is like a team sport. Everybody piles in. If you're an editor looking to edit a piece, just by the fact that you're looking at that story bin, gives you some interaction with it, and you're going to leave some benefit behind by marking it as ready to air, in process, or whatever. Open media really is this dynamic database that is everybody's responsibility. And that's the beauty of it. That's also the challenge, because we're asking everybody to contribute. If it all filtered through one person, it would drive you crazy.
Right on. Thank you very much. Certainly for all our guests here, I would encourage you to add any additional questions into the questions panel. We will have some time to get through some more. We do have some here. So a couple here from Anthony Singh. First up for Ross and Bills. For voiceovers, how many mono audio channels are combined with the video channel? A stereo pair or 5-1?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
How many mono audio channels are combined with the video channel? A stereo pair or 5-1?
Yeah, for voice records, if I understand the question correctly, I mean, for our final mixes, we produce in 5.1, but for voice records, it's usually a stereo recording that's delivered for our dialogue team to edit.
Great.
Hope that answers the question.
You know what? I'm not sure if you're online actively, Anthony, but what I might do, because the next two are from you too, is I'm going to unmute you and give you the opportunity maybe to ask these questions on your own, just to make sure you're getting the full answer. So with that, oh, you're self-muted, so you might be able to unmute if you get to that real soon. If not, then I'll just move forward with the next one, also from Anthony. For your HDR graphics work, which file formats are you using? OpenEXR or Radiance.hdr?
I don't have an answer to that. I can get back to you if you'd like to provide, I don't know if there's a way that we can follow up with some of the participants here or some of the attendees. If we could get their email address, I can respond in that one.
For sure. And the last one from Anthony for Eric Shen. For MCR applications, are audio voiceovers use 2 mono audio channels or more?
Sorry, just reach out the mute button. For voiceover, we are using the actually 1 mono channel, and once we have that normal mono voice channel, we actually duplicate it to other pair. So we have this not stereo; it's a mono but 2 channel configuration.
Great.
Hey, Stosh, if I can jump in here.
Sure.
I have a question. Just from the, it's Tony here, just from the concept of everybody working from home, is there a complexity now that you've got equipment in everybody's house that their hydro bills are going up? Is there, is there anything from, having equipment, insurance, add complications to people working from home?
Yeah, I can answer that. I mean, on one hand, you're not paying for gas. It's amazing how much money people are saving by not commuting. But on the other side, it's one thing, and I'm speaking to you from my bedroom, the nice office chairs, the ergonomic, all those work safe things that we call in BC. Work safe is sort of the workers' compensation kind of branch of the government that we're all kind of, for workplace safety. It's like, people have neck problems and back problems and wrist problems, and they're working at their kitchen table sometimes. So we're actually, sending out a lot more dual monitors. I think we're allowing people to sign out like their nice chairs. It's a $900 chair. They're $1,000 chairs. That's an office chair. But that's just the state of the nation right now. People got to be comfortable.
Yeah, I have one more question. I read an article and I was a little surprised with the article, and the context was people working from home out of the gate was a great idea. Everybody really latched onto it. But as time is going on, the article suggested that people kind of wanted to get back into the office because they appreciated the separation between office environment and home environment, and the fact that the office and home environment became murky, that it was getting complicated. Life was getting complicated, and everybody was kind of suggesting that can't hardly wait that we can then now separate and get back into 2 camps, because that's kind of like what everybody grew up as or like with. I'm just wondering if anybody had any comments to that. What's that?
Those worlds are colliding, and we need to tear them back apart relative to home versus work life.
Yeah. Anyone with young kids, that's a challenge. But at the same time, when I do go into the office and I try to get in there from time to time, you really get the stink eye from folks. And that's not because it's me, but if you don't have to be there, don't be there. Keep to your bubble. And it's a health and safety issue more than anything. I would love to go back to work. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but I miss getting on airplanes, and I miss traveling the country, and I miss seeing all my colleagues across the country. But it's a dangerous news assignment. How's that?
Mm.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier about for instance, my home becomes my office. Every time I step into that room, I feel like I'm working. I think we all kind of you know, it depending on, you know, individual situation, we all kind of share this, you know, sometimes enjoyment, sometimes thinking, you know, I would really like to go back home, go back to work, to go to a, you know, office area. So I think for the most part, I talk to people, most people don't mind the split between working from home and going to the office in the future, if we were allowed to. So this may be something that we are looking at. You know, so a lot of the process for the end, there's no meant to be perfect. We still have some place to go. You know, improve the workflow and then make it more efficient. I think either way, and then this is the future that we might just look at a split, depending on the ratio where you want to be. You know, whether you be at office more often versus at home.
I guess along the same vein, Martin Persaud's asking, moving forward, what are the challenges of maintaining work at home or work from home efforts for business continuity? Kind of to the whole panel.
I tell you, the unsung heroes right now are network security. And there's like, you know, we are hammering our staff with cybersecurity training, phishing stuff. It's like you will get your account suspended if you do not fulfill your obligation to go through these training courses on phishing and identifying potential threats. And there are a lot of them. And there are organizations all over the world that are getting hammered and being held hostage with phishing schemes and stuff. And, you know, the network is a blessing and a curse, right? You can't, without the network, you can't do this kind of work. And if it's compromised in any sense, your business is done. So, yeah, it's the network security is probably the growth industry in television right now, probably.
Any other comments on that? All right, next up for Eric, about master control, or at least one operator and director on site. So who's left in the building, if anyone?
And then one, so just so I understand the question, one operator and one director on site? And
yeah,
who's going to be leaving?
Are there at least? So they're just asking who's actually who's still on site?
Well, we have, you know, like I said, 40% of the mass control operators still on site. The interesting thing is that, you know, in our mass control in Calgary, we kind of have this room has two bays. You know, we have a mass control operator at the front, we have ingest operator at the back, and we have a live board in the middle, right? So today, if you walk into our mass control in Calgary, we only have half the people. You only see one person for the mass control, one for the live switch, and the other one for the ingest.
Right. So from one of your own, from Mike Sherman, he's asking for any of the presenters, one of your own meaning a fellow Chorus Entertainment colleague, what was the toughest technology, gear, or other item to get set up to have people work from home? I think that's something that you could each take a stab at. The toughest technology, gear, or other item to get set up to have people work from home.
For the studio, many of the communication protocols were already in place. We just hadn't done it at the scale that we were forced to do it at suddenly. So a lot of it was tested. I mean, we did open up some generic portals to directory structures where people required random access. Frankly, the biggest challenge was making sure that all the workstations that we sent out were patched and up to spec in terms of Windows 10 patching and security software that had been installed and was operational. At the time, our biggest concern was doing it in a very timely fashion because we didn't want productions to shut down and people to go unemployed. So that was our concern, doing it quick, but still ensuring that the devices that we were sending out were cyber secure.
Jerry?
Believe it or not, you know, it wasn't any of the technical infrastructure. I'm getting tips from Riza here, but it's really the you forget as sort of you know, and as senior leaders in the organization, you're used to doing a lot of your stuff in hotels and on laptops and stuff. And I was kind of shocked by the network prowess or the sort of the basic desktop skills of some of the people. You wouldn't think dialing on a VPN would be a big deal, but it seemed to be a big deal. There are hundreds and hundreds of people that had to be trained on working remotely with a simple laptop, and it wasn't their desktop. It didn't have two monitors at first. The whole idea of, and you know, the VPN was a bit of a challenge at first because it was just overwhelmed. You know, we had a very small pipe that was actually located in Toronto. So as someone on the West Coast, when I would dial in on the VPN, I had to go all the way there and all the way back. The latency is something you get used to, but I was, you know, basic file management, you know, where things were, you know, you didn't have someone next to you to ask, like, where did you leave that file, or where is that graphic? Yeah, it's the people challenges, the technical challenges. I think the IT team and the engineering teams at Chorus did such an amazing job leading these folks, or it was just the help desk stuff, you know, that was hard. All these people, you know, putting like, you know, hundreds of people out into the field and getting hundreds of phone calls. That was the hardest thing. Where is this?
Thank you.
From the engineering perspective, Mike, for your question, really is to do with you know, any computer, any system that's not on the web access. I think we have a group of computer connected to a KVM system, so which we don't allow them on the network. And we limited access to those computer. You can only access them through the KVM system. So how do we turn around to get people, especially the engineering team, be able to get onto the KVM? This computer only access through a KVM. It is the hardest part. So a lot of process we can do, whatever that mimicking that. You know, once we have the KVM, I think security is a major concern if we put it onto something that being controlled by a third party. There's a lot of security process around that to protect that particular computer from any other intentional access.
Great, thank you very much. Vils, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I think on the post side, you know, it was probably getting TeamViewer rolled out across the department. We had you know, early on identified, and again, you know, thinking back 10 months ago versus how comfortable everybody is now with the workflows, you really have to kind of, you know, put your mind back to that time and remember how challenging it was. And you know, we've got so many different workflows across our post team, again, just based on the types of different work that we do. So again, for Nelvana animation, we have you know, like editing, we have color editing, we have online editing. So how do we use the tools that we have across all of these different workflows? And you know, we kind of you know, we have our kind of key users on our team who we work with you know, in terms of kind of testing the waters and you know, applying certain settings for this to get, you know, we had issues where audio, for example, wasn't coming through. You know, it also became readily apparent that people who had less than, you know, a certain level of home internet connection could only really do so much remotely editing. You know, so but people who had upgraded and had the latest, you know, greatest stuff from Rogers or whatever at home, they seem to have less of those types of issues. So, you know, working across, you know, a large number of very specific and individual cases, it was probably our biggest challenge.
Well, I think that wraps up most of the questions I see here. Tony, maybe with that, before I sign off, I certainly would like to give a shout out to Jamie Cairo. He did a fantastic job of pulling all you Chorus Entertainment people together. Thank you so much to him and to all of you for sharing that wonderful evening. There's still a little bit to go. With that, Tony, take it away.
Okay, well, thank you again, guys. Really, really appreciated. I think great evening. I think everybody had a lot to say, great information, and our attendees, I'm sure, with the number of questions that we had, were right into it as well. So I've got a couple of slides left, if I may just take a couple more minutes of your time. We did a survey back in December and had you fill out the information, and surveys are always good for us from a board level, just to kind of give us a certification that we are doing the right thing. And as you can see here, 75% of you use the direct email that we send out to be informed of what meetings are coming, and that's where we focus most of our attention. Likewise, with 87% will likely come back to another virtual meeting, so we're doing the right thing there. Social channels, now we know which one to spend and focus on. And part of that survey as well was we had some prizes. We had some coffee mugs, we had some gift cards, Starbucks, we've had some free memberships. So those are the names of the individuals that won something. And we are in the process of reaching out to each one to say Merry Christmas at ×2. There is a recording for tonight. There will be a URL to the SMPTE Home SMPTE YouTube channel that will be in the email link that you'll be sent tomorrow from the GoToWebinar people. Future meetings, February 9th is student focused, and we'll be looking at topics about various topics around students. I think there's some virtualized, there's esports, things of that nature. So set your calendars for February the 9th. March the 8th, we are looking at doing a ATSC3 with Humber College. They have a lab up at Humber College working on that technology and trying to source that out. So we're hoping to have the people from Humber College speak to that. The April one, we're still trying to figure that out. May is latest display technology. In June, we're looking at doing something with the CBC guys in Montreal on their new building that they've commissioned. And then again, June 9th and 10th, we're looking at doing the technical conference. Again, we have the elections process started. If you want to get involved, do reach out to us. There's places where you can grab a hold of us, whether it be on the website, whether it be, if you're not getting emails, you can become a friend of our section, and that's the URL to grab that, and you can sign up on a form, and you'll get information from us. And Facebook, Twitter, and email are the places or how you can get a hold of us. So that's it. Just want to make sure, I want to make sure that everybody stays well and stay safe. And that is a wrap. And we will see you again next month. And again, thank you to all of the presenters this evening. And again, to Jamie for throwing it all together for us. Bills, thank you. Ross, thank you. And Jerry. And
thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody.